Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Honorable Chris Wright, U.S. Secretary of Energy.
Hello, everyone. It's an honor to be here. I look out in this room. In all honesty, I can't see any of you because I have blinding lights. But I know who you are. As I look out, look, this is scientists, technology entrepreneurs, innovators, investors. You have come here because you're working in energy. You're using your minds, your passion, your heart, your capital to advance the United States and global energy system. Thank you. Another way to say it is, you are my tribe. This is my tribe. I have spent my life, my entire life, focused and passionate about what you do every day. So I feel at home, I feel enthusiastic to see the crowd, the breadth of the technologies being worked on, the range of the applications. As I toured the event floor today, I heard 5 stories, wildly different in the technology, but all about how do we take technology, innovation, harness energy resources to make the world a better place. That's what Arpa-E is all about. Arpa-E was a bold idea 17 years ago, but it's turned into something massively more than that today because of all of you. So thank you and bless you for your efforts and commitment to this area. Energy is hard. You know that. This is much different. I first worked in semiconductor device physics, and we could shrink down the ability to contain information and do computations at amazing speed, at amazing scale. Dealing with energy, it's friction. It's mass, it's physical. Energy is hard, but energy is life. The absence of energy is poverty, despair, reduced opportunities, and ultimately death. Energy is the most important industry in the world ever, and it will always be. Because energy is foundational. It's foundational to everything humans do, everything our economy does. It's just, if you change energy, you impact the world. You expand human possibilities, and you make life improvements possible. You could not have chose a more important field to work in. Now that AI stuff that I'm going to talk about with Lisa in a little bit, it's cool. It's really cool, in fact. But without copious amounts of energy and a certain quality and a certain type of energy, there is no AI. Without AI, energy is still the foundational infrastructure for human lives and human civilization. Now, I don't want to sound like I'm dissing AI. Lisa's going to come after me here in a little bit. And the reason I love AI and I'm so passionate about AI is I do think it's quite parallel to energy. The way I view AI is it is energy for the human brain, the human mind. AI is going to accelerate the capabilities of all of our minds. Whatever we do today, we're going to be able to do it better. We're going to do it faster. We're going to do it in ways we haven't thought of before. I don't view AI as replacing humans at all. Of course, it'll have displacement effects in a job market, but I think the pluses will be massively bigger than the minuses. But what AI is really doing is it's better energizing our brain. It's just giving us more capacities and more opportunities in life. So I'm thrilled to work on energy to make sure AI can go ahead at full speed. Energy, I've got to say though, and I say it a lot, so if you're tired of hearing it, sorry, energy the last 5 or 10 years just got way off track. Energy got politicized. It got swept up in climate alarmism. that we need to change the global energy system immediately. In fact, we need to reduce global energy consumption as soon as possible. This is alarmism. And don't get me wrong, climate change is a real thing. I've spent 20 years engaging and looking at it. It is a true physical phenomenon. It's a challenge we're going to deal with in the future. But if you look carefully at the data on both climate change and economics and trade-offs, it is just not even close to the world's most important problem. We shouldn't forget about it. We shouldn't ignore it. But we just need to treat it in the right context. We've treated it as the only thing. It's just a thing. The result has been 10 or 20 years of just massive investment in energy that wasn't helpful in better energizing the world, wasn't helpful in lifting people out of poverty, wasn't helpful in expanding access to energy. In fact, I believe it'll go down as the greatest malinvestment in history. But I think the world, not just the United States, not just us in the Department of Energy, the world is starting to pivot. And we're back focused on what is energy about. And the one obvious conclusion is the world needs more energy, just massively, massively more energy. A billion people live a lifestyle like us that can dream about flying to a conference and wearing fancy clothes and having these great lights that blind your eyes. We can do that stuff because we live fully energized lives. That's awesome. 7 billion people want to join our lifestyle. And you know what? They should and they will. But the only road from where we are today to there is just massively more energy production on the global stage. The only way we're going to bring AI in to transform so many of our problems is massively more energy. The focus on energy has got to be about addition. I say the simplest way to think about energy, and I think the lens we all need to use on energy, is boil energy down to two things: humans and math. Humans, because why do we produce energy? We don't produce energy because it's, beautiful or it fills up some empty void in our life. We produce energy because it makes lives better. We produce energy to better human lives. Math is how are you going to invest that? Development in new technology or building a new energy source or expanding an existing energy system. There's finite resources in the world. We should always do the math of what's the biggest problem in energy, and if I invest $1 in what I'm trying to do here, do I get more than $1? Hopefully I get several dollars of benefit. We've spent $10 trillion where we've taken dollars and turned them into quarters or dimes or nickels, and in some cases, negative value. We can't do that as a society. That's not the way forward. The way forward is to focus on energy as a way to better people's lives and evaluate the math. Climate change is in that math. There are trade-offs. Anytime you produce something, there's side effects and there's benefits. The key story is just, are the benefits bigger than the side effects? And how do I make the benefits bigger? And how do I shrink the side effects? We got to be rational, not emotional, not political, not tribal on energy. Just rational people. Of course, there's emotion in all of us, but let's focus on humans and math for the very simple reason that energy is life, and we can't screw it up. If we get it right and we supercharge it, we're going to make our country and the world a better place. That's what we want for ourselves, our families in the future. Bless you all. I look forward to the dialogue about AI and energy with Lisa Su.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back Arpa-E Director, Connor Prohaska.
Well, I thought that was pretty darn motivating. I don't know about you guys. Let's give another round of applause to Secretary Wright. This is going to be a pretty exciting session this afternoon in our special session here. I can't think of two people that would want to listen to more, two of the leaders in the world of energy and in the world of technology. So without further ado, let me introduce Chair and CEO of AMD, Dr. Lisa Su. And welcome back to the stage, Secretary Chris Wright. Well, thank you for those remarks to get this afternoon started and make sure everybody's coffee kicks in and feels the energy from you, Mr. Secretary. I want to start with something a little light. You know, if you've listened to either of these great individuals talk and give speeches and interviews, they both talk about their childhood curiosity. Secretary, you talk about looking up at the stars and curious of what's up there. And Dr. Su, you talk about taking your brother's toys and taking them apart because you wanted to see how they worked and trying not so great to put them back together. And then you both, as you grew up, you stayed with that passion and both ended up at MIT. And Dr. Su, let me start with you. You know, did you see that pathway would take you to this amazing place of leadership in the technology research and development world right now?
Well, first, Connor, it's great to be here. Great to see so many folks in the audience. Thank you for the invitation. And I just realized, Mr. Secretary, that I obviously had the wrong major at MIT because it's all about energy. So, is that right?
There is no energy major, though.
But look, you know, it's so incredible what technology can do. And when you think about all the various different professions, I would never imagine that I'd be sitting here with Secretary Wright and amongst all of these incredibly brilliant people who are, you know, working on the technology that is truly, truly making the world a better place. And you know, that's how I fell in love with technology. It's the idea that the work that we do makes such a difference in the world. And what better profession can you ask for?
And Secretary Wright was Secretary of Energy always on your billboard there?
Definitely not. Definitely not. Yeah, so first as a kid, the reason I ended out at MIT was, yeah, as you mentioned, I was interested in astronomy, right? And you know, how we could see things that were so far away. Obviously, that's as I called it, a badass candle. That you could see these stars from hundreds of quadrillions of miles away. And there was a mania when I was a kid, you know, I was thinking that late 70s or early 80s, that the world was going to end. And then it was the world was going to end because we were running out of everything. We were running out of energy and farmland and fertilizer. You know, these manias are always pessimistic. The end of the world is always a generation or so away. And then, it was very focused on energy. And of course, as a young, impressionable kid, I'm like, my God, that's clearly we're soon to run out of oil, gas, and coal. And and I was, longer story, I was passionate about having everyone to have the same life opportunities I had. So I thought, if we're going to run out of energy, I want to work in energy. I'm interested in stars, and that's fusion energy. Humans are ingenious. I'm going to go to college to work on that. There were two universities then, Princeton and MIT, that had tokamaks, that had reactors that looked like a pathway to fusion energy. So I narrowed it down to two, and then as sort of a competitive jerk, you know, I found out, I decided MIT was the best technical school, so it's the only college I visited, the only place I applied to. And I was like, at a young age, I'm like, I'm going there.
That's a great course there. And now, as I mentioned, I don't think there's two more timely people to have up on the stage of an Arpa-E summit when we think about everything we're trying to accomplish, from greater generation to more efficient transmission and then to efficiency. Dr. Su, I want to talk a little bit about that efficiency piece. It's a lot of what we've been focusing on, particularly in the AI data center world. Where do you see the trajectory of efficiencies at data centers going right now?
Well, I really love this analogy. When I think about it, in our world, it's all about compute, and we really are like extraordinarily excited about the power of AI. But AI is enabled by compute, and compute is enabled by energy. And so when you think about those pieces, it really kind of tells you what the order is of what needs to be handled. And about 15 years ago, I think in semiconductors, we realized that yes, we can keep increasing performance. Yes, we can keep making devices smaller and more powerful. But really, the efficiency of devices, the efficiency of compute, is what determines how much further you can push the envelope. And so it's really been not just about raw performance and raw capability. It's about how can we make computing much more energy efficient. And so it's a first order consideration in everything that we do. And when you think about data centers today, as much as I know we're going to talk a lot about sort of the state of play for data centers, but the truth is, like, we're all limited by having more power and more capability, and so it is incumbent upon us to use our energy as efficiently as possible. And we're constantly looking at how do you optimize every aspect of the compute stack, from hardware to software to algorithms to models to coming together in full systems and full full clusters, such that every ounce of energy that we have, that we're using as efficiently as we can.
Well, let's talk about the state of play. Mr. Secretary, the state of play of AI and data centers, and what, in your opinion, is the department's role in enabling that, in working with our private sector partners going forward?
Yeah, so look, the innovation at companies and pioneers like Lisa sitting next to me, what has happened with AI is truly awe-inspiring. Serious. When we were at MIT, artificial intelligence was talked about then. It was right around the corner, my whole life. Now it actually is arriving. It is transformative. So what I view the goal of the Department of Energy, and frankly the US government, is most innovation, and certainly commercial applications of innovation, is driven by business. It's not driven by government. Although our national labs are true gems and massive, massive players in scientific innovation and in AI innovation. But AI, getting where it is today and where it's going to go in the next 10 years, is dominantly driven by private businesses and leaders like Lisa. What we need to do is to make sure the constraints that are holding them back, we got to unleash those chains, we got to unleash those constraints. They can't build data centers to drive America forward fast enough because they can't get enough power.
Right.
My number one job is to figure out how we can get more power out of our existing grid today and do everything we can to build new infrastructure so that a few years from now we can bring just massively more power generation on. We don't want to hold back this incredible wave of human advancement that is arriving right here. And of course, we don't want to send it overseas. It's going to go overseas. We're not against that. But we want America as the leader and dominant player in that. And we only can be that if we have the energy resources here that can be utilized, and we have a permitting environment and a regulatory regime that's welcoming to the massive investments that need to be made.
On the constraints piece, Dr. Su, where we were, let's say 5-6 years ago, where we are now, where we can be, as far as addressing those constraints, what's at the top of your list at AMD?
Well, what I really like is what the Secretary said about what we're trying to do. I mean, what we're really trying to do is lead, right? As innovators, what we want to do is keep pushing the envelope on what technology is capable of, what we can use technology for, such that we can really impact the lives of everyone in our country and everyone in the world. And so when you think about if that's your objective, you want to have as many resources as possible. And then when you look at the constraints, I think the first time we met, Mr. Secretary, I was this conversation about we are at an inflection point for AI. You're right, like AI's been around forever, easily many, many years, but it never reached the point where it was truly accessible to people. Like, people really didn't know how to use it. It was too difficult. You couldn't imagine it solving, really hard, problems. Today we can imagine it, but we are constrained by having the right resources. And so your comment about, what can we do together to move this faster? I think it's the wonderful thing that comes when you have the government, really leaning in to help private sector, figure out how to go faster. Because it is about, not just, solving a certain constraint, but it's also doing it in a way that is very efficient as we get there. And I very much appreciate, the partnerships that we have. And I agree, there's so many great ideas out there. Like, our job is to unlock those ideas with, the right infrastructure.
Connor and I work for the federal government. We're in the service business. Our job is to serve the American people and to serve American businesses. That's what we're here for.
And he doesn't just say that on stage. He says it in just about every meeting with private sector companies. And so my joke is we're going to...
I can vouch for that.
My joke is we're going to get that hamburger counter that McDonald's has and say how many private companies served at the Department of Energy.
Great idea.
Yeah. So as we think about serving the private industry, one of the things that the president's been very clear on, you've been very clear on, Secretary Wright, is speed, is how fast can we move this? I'd ask both of you, are we moving fast enough, whether it's internally in the country or against our external competition, to be able to compete?
So we can always move faster. So the short answer is no. Are we moving fast enough today? Absolutely not. And let me give one quick example. Like, in the energy space, over the last 20 years, the United States has tripled our oil production. We've more than doubled our natural gas production. Together, those two energy sources are 72% of U.S. primary energy. Here we are in California, there's 75% of primary energy in California, who obviously loves oil and gas more than the rest of the country. But so rapid transformation, we globally reset oil prices lower by a factor of 2, natural gas prices at least by that much. Like, that's what America can do. But in the electricity sector over the last 20 years, we barely produce more electricity today than we did 20 years ago, and it's massively more expensive. And it's more constrained today. That's crazy. So electricity sector has not worked like other sectors of energy. And so one of our jobs, and our whole administration's job, the Trump administration, is to fix that, is to make electricity dynamic, fast-moving, focused on cost and quality of service, and drive it forward. But can American entrepreneurs, the people in this room and the businesses in our country, do that? Absolutely they can do that. Absolutely. And so I'll conclude by saying we have to move at the speed of business. And we sent out a proposal last fall saying, we're hearing you're having trouble siting data centers. Let us know how we can help. Come build on our land. And I think 72 hours later, Lisa was in D.C. and said, I'll build here and I'll start tomorrow. And I said, yes.
Also a true story.
It actually is a true story. But I think the passion that you have, that we have together, is about, how do we get the best technology in the hands of everyone as soon as possible. And so to this point of, are we moving fast enough? We can always move faster, no question. But I can say for sure that, this administration has had such a different way of doing things in terms of, I feel like everything is on the table. I mean, that's the conversations that we've had. And, for example, talking about the national labs, I mean, we are so proud of the work that we do with the national labs. And I know there are many of the researchers here in the audience, but I mean, just fantastic research. I like to say that some of the best work that we've done at AMD has been in partnership with the national labs, because we get a chance to set a goal that is, really hard and really aspirational, and then we get the power of the public and private sector to come together, and certainly when we worked with Oak Ridge National Labs and Lawrence Livermore on some of the big, large supercomputers over the last, last 5-6 years. I think that has been tremendous. And then now, thanks to the partnership, Mr. Secretary, with the department right now, we're building 2 new computers together. Very excited. I told the secretary that, hey, if we can get this, we can get some very, very exciting new supercomputers built for AI, for science, and you said, okay, let's go do it. And now we have Lux as well as Discovery on tap at the Oak Ridge Labs. So it's an example. It's an example of how we can move much, much faster than we have in the past.
So heartwarming to me. As a lifelong entrepreneur, I thought the government would be slow and bureaucratic and indecisive, but yeah, President Trump, just an entirely different animal. He's like, we need to win at AI. Chris, figure it out, figure it out. And we need to get out of the way and make it happen. He has been willing to take a risk, willing to do whatever, but he's like, if the way we've done things before haven't worked, well, change it. And why aren't you changing more? And why aren't you changing faster?
Well, and you talked about Lux and Discovery, but that was our next step here.
Yes.
Is the group heard from Undersecretary Dario Gil about the Genesis mission this morning, and AMD was the first one to raise their hand and say, we want to partner on the Genesis mission with you. And that resulted in that great partnership with Oak Ridge National Laboratory and moving fast. And action is underway, and it's pretty exciting. As we go into the next phase of Genesis, we're gaining partners. Mr. Secretary, I'd love to hear what you look to get out of the Genesis mission, the platform, the Lighthouse goals.
Well, look, as I said, commercial industry has massive capital and are investing hugely in artificial intelligence. It's going to transform the way business is done. It's going to transform the way we understand information and humans interact. It's going to transform a lot of things. But what do we want at the DOE? And one of my proudest titles, is to be the, lead cheerleader for our 17 national labs, right, that have just been massive drivers of innovation. So we want to take some of those resources that the commercial developers are doing, the computing power and the mindset and the brilliance, and apply that to accelerate the pace of scientific discovery. I get emotional thinking about how transformative it will be. If you look at our lives today versus a generation ago or 4 generations, that's mostly scientific and engineering discoveries about how to do things, how to solve things that used to kill people, or how to give people housing, how to make people's lives better. We're going to be able to accelerate massively that pace of scientific discovery by partnering with the scientific horsepower and the data sets we have at the labs with commercial players with massive capital and that move very fast. I kid you not, that was not an exaggeration. Lisa flew to Washington and said, I know where we can build a system right now in Oak Ridge. I know where it exists in a computing center we already had. We will start building right now. We will have something, in 6 or 9 months. We are on track to have something under that 9-month time frame that's going to accelerate scientific discovery. Did I imagine we'd have an idea and that we'd have a massive supercomputer built and dedicated to it within 9 months when I joined the government? No, I had no idea that was possible. And I'm thrilled to see it happen, thrilled to see it happen. And the leader is right here.
Now, we are absolutely committed to get great science out of these systems, and the fact is there's so much excitement. I mean, there's so much excitement, and that is true across both the public and private sector in terms of what we can do together. So, and Connor, if I can just say a little bit about the Genesis mission. I mean, it is fantastic. I mean, the idea that we can put a moonshot, sort of that mobilizes not only all of the United States and all of the, when you think about academia, for us in industry, the national labs together, but also our allies around the world around something that, again, truly none of us would be able to do by ourselves. I mean, I can say that for sure. Like we would develop different technology because we have the Genesis mission in front of us. Not that we wouldn't need it in normal businesses and enterprises, but we would need it later in time. So we wouldn't deliver at the same rate and pace.
Sure.
But because we have this big ambitious goal out there, we will put our best researchers on developing the next generation chip technologies, packaging technologies, energy efficiency techniques, such that we can provide the type of computing that the Genesis mission needs, so that researchers around the world could really use that. And I think that's the beauty of really these types of projects, and bringing everyone together.
And I'll say on behalf of Arpa-E and the performers in this room, and some of the best researchers that you're going to find out here, and investors, and the team here is eager to work with the Genesis mission, utilize the Genesis mission and the platform. I think there's going to be some awesome things that Arpa-E is able to benefit from this.
Connor, wouldn't it be fair to say Arpa-E is like a precursor to the Genesis mission? It's very parallel, right? We're taking commercial entrepreneurs, innovators, investors, combining with the science and technology of our national lab, and trying to make the 1 + 1 = 3 and not
Absolutely.
2. And Arpa-E in this room is proof that can happen. Bringing national labs, bringing some funding with innovators and technologists, gathering together in a community. I've got to say, it's phenomenal, truly phenomenal, what Arpa-E and all the players in this room today, all the commercial innovators that have worked with us over the last 15 years have done. It is tremendous. Genesis mission is the same model. It's the same model to take our national labs, to take computing power, to take commercial industry, and together make something happen that, as Lisa said very clearly, would never happen if the labs just did the lab thing and the universities did their thing, and commercial businesses who don't have the luxury to have the 100-year time frame. We want to understand the basic fabric of the universe. That's not a profitable business. But that is critical things that we need to study. And when we can bring that ecosystem together, oh my gosh, I truly think it's breathless. 5 years from now, 10 years from now, when we look back, what happened in Genesis mission?
I hope the AV team clipped that, because that's going on all our recruitment videos going forward. I couldn't agree with you more. Back to, as we're talking about Genesis, what's your dream, Dr. Sue, on what private industry can get out of it? So we want to utilize the horsepower of private industry because we know as a government we can't do it on our own. What do you see as the upside, the benefit?
The real benefit that I see is really bringing all of these different disciplines and capabilities together in such a way that we will accelerate the rate and pace of computing innovation. Mm-hmm. Like, we will build more powerful chips to power the compute needs. If I think about the goals of Genesis, and my friend Dario sets very, very ambitious goals in terms of just how much productivity we want to be able to achieve in a short amount of time, it requires us to think differently about how we build chips, how we build systems, how we bring hardware and software together, how we bring new techniques in, and for the massive scale of the Genesis mission, I think it will help us solve some really big scientific problems that we can't do today. Like, there's just not enough compute in the world to, fully, bring all of the, whether you're talking about biology or energy or, these scientific problems together. What we then hope to do is take all of that learning and make it commercially viable. Mm-hmm. And it might be something that becomes a very, start in a more, let's call it lab format that ends up being commercially viable a few years down the road. And it accelerates the rate and progress of research, in these areas.
So if we take a more global view at technology and energy and the research and development community here in the United States, this is Arpa-E. The world is our oyster in some ways. We're open to exploring what I was calling this morning the unknown, the unexplored, and the unwanted, if you will. And we go out and find those unique technologies and look at areas others aren't. Mr. Secretary, if you could pick an area, I know certain technologies you're passionate about, but if you could become an Arpa-E program director right now and choose what mission you wanted to run at, what would it be?
Man, I can't choose because there's so many. And I think with the talent in the room today and the arrival of AI resources at scale, I think collectively we're going to solve massive problems. Like, I went to college over 40 years ago to work on fusion energy, and I contributed 0.00 infinite number of zeros to that effort. But we're going to, with the great talent we have today and with this supercharging from artificial intelligence, we're going to figure out how to control a plasma that can burn like the sun on Earth. We're going to do that in the next few years. And then we're going to use the same laboratory and entrepreneurs in this room and AI, and then we're going to figure out how to make that into an engineered system to continue to drive down the cost of that. We're going to do the same thing with fission power. You know, at our Idaho National Labs, we're using AI to design a nuclear reactor, you know, create a machine replica of it, run it, and figure out how do we optimize the economics of developing fission power. We're gonna solve so many problems in drug discovery and in biology and diseases that are just death sentences today. We're gonna turn them into manageable conditions in the next few years, not in the next few generations, in the next few years. These are ambitions people have worked on. We've made massive progress, but you accelerate that rate of progress, and we're going to transform energy. Let me give you one more. You had me choose one, I'm going to choose four. One more, our electricity grid, right? We have a problem right now. Lisa and her colleagues, they want to build data centers really fast. We're slow in building new power infrastructure. AI is going to figure out how to get tens of gigawatts more dispatchable, reliable power out of our grid without anything new. Just ways to operate it smarter, just different connections, different operating procedures. That's critical for us right now. AI, the electricity network is massively complicated, massively important, and today it's run like a giant bureaucracy. You need something new, well, we'll get back to you in 6 years and we'll hook you up. You know, that's not a good answer. But we're gonna transform how the grid is managed and operated and controlled with artificial intelligence.
And I think that's important. Everybody talks about the potential issues that AI will cause on our grid, but I don't think we talk near enough, and we're working to talk more about it specifically at Arpa-E, about how AI can fix these issues, because it is a tool that needs to be integrated across our portfolio, across the department's portfolio, and that's what Genesis is part about doing. Same question.
Well, maybe let me portray it this way. Like, if you paint a picture of what is AI for? Like, we keep talking about AI, and, you know, frankly, we were talking backstage, Mr. Secretary, about how we in the tech sector haven't done a great job at talking about the true benefits of AI, which is true because we almost think it's kind of second nature, it's obvious, like people should want AI. Well, why should people want AI? I mean, people should want AI because we have the power for every one of us, every single person in the world, to become smarter and more productive. AI is not going to replace humans. I agree with you. I think that's a fallacy. I think there may be some changes in what people do, but the fact is, you know, what is the most valuable thing each one of us has? It's our time. Like, if we could save, you know, an hour a day, 2 hours a day, if we could become that much more productive, if we could solve that next problem that we can't solve today, if we could take, you know, drug discovery now that maybe, you know, takes 5 or 10 years to find exactly the right combination, and you can do it in a year, or you can do it in 6 months, or maybe it's not perfect, but you can trial it on, you know, certain aspects of a disease. You can add so much, you know, quality of life and, you know, quality of you know, just capability. So that's why we should want AI. Now, the problem is we just don't have enough power to do it today. We don't. I mean, we project that you need 1,000 times more compute than we have today. There's, you know, as fast as we can build, Mr. Secretary, we can't build that fast. And so You know, the idea of bringing the best minds across disciplines, I'm a big, big believer in let's take our, you know, our semiconductor experts and our system experts and our energy experts and come together and figure out what are the boldest ideas we can to, number one, let's get more power, but number two, how do we use that power as efficiently as possible in a way that's very responsible, very cost-effective, and allows us to take this wonderful promise of a technology and disseminate it? That's what I would love to do. So, you know, back to all of the extremely smart people in this room, like, that's what we have to do, is kind of bring together this notion of, you know, when we bring the brightest minds together across different disciplines, we will be able to solve what previously just did not seem possible to solve.
Well, we're blessed to have two of the leading minds in the energy and technology space right now, and I'd be remiss if I didn't suck up every second of time that we have with you. And so to close, I'd love to ask just a very general advice for the entrepreneurs, the innovators, the researchers, the investors that are out here as they go and work on this mission of accelerating and advancing American lives through innovation, which is what we're talking about here at Arpa-E right now. Mr. Secretary?
I got to start again with a thank you. Thank you all, because it's the people in this room that have made Arpa-E successful. Thank you for leaning in with proposals and partnership to drive innovation. I think the track record over the last 15, 17 years has been awesome. We need you to make even more progress in the next 15 years. To me, I would say Connor's a lifelong entrepreneur. If you work on something you believe in, that matters to you, I say it's a mission, not a job. You're just a different person when you're doing that stuff. And so find what you love, find work that's meaningful to you, and then go aggressively. Go aggressively, but you have to be willing to admit your idea was wrong when the data says it's wrong. So you got to pivot. You know, if I followed my original ideas, I would still be beating my head against the same wall, and then I wouldn't have gotten anywhere. So I think having strong belief and passion to run down a pathway, and then you're often going to find out you need to pivot. Hey, this was the original plan, but that's not going to get me everywhere I want. Some of the things I did was an actual U-turn. I was going exactly the wrong direction. And, but I think working in things you love and that matter and are important to you, and so they're a mission, not a job, that's how the magic happens.
Any parting advice, Dr. Su?
Well, you know, I would say that the thing that's on my mind these days, having spent, you know, the last, 30 years in tech, is I really believe this time is different. It is, and if you take that into account, I think the sky is the limit, right? We grew up going to school and we learned about all of these laws. There's Moore's law, there's Amdahl's law, there's all of these laws that say things happen like this and they'll happen like this for the next, decade, 2 decades. Now it's different. The laws are changing. Actually, we can change the slope of the line as to how fast we learn. The people in this room can change the slope of the line. I can tell you that the rate and pace of learning that we see today in the industry is far beyond the rate and pace that we were at even over the last 5 years. And so the sky's the limit, right? It's really find that ability to be extraordinarily ambitious with what's possible because we have different tools than we had before. And with that in mind, I mean, it's just a wonderful, wonderful time to be in this area.
Lisa talking about the second derivative in her closing remarks is perfect proof that this is my tribe.
That's where you're supposed to be. Well, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in thanking Dr. Lisa Su and Secretary of Energy Chris Wright. Thank you.